Right, what's happening, guys? Welcome to the first episode of Sensible Investing, where we talk about sensible investment ideas to help build your wealth. And the topic of today is gold and silver. So, as always, before we get into it, just a general disclaimer for anything that you see in this video or on this channel for that matter. Should not be construed as financial advice. And if you're going to buy anything, you should always do your own research. Okay, guys, so why buy gold and silver? And the reason is simple.
I love gold!
In one word, insurance. So what you're actually buying when you buy gold and silver, unlike other investments like shares or bonds or property, is that what you're buying is actually protection and insurance for your money rather than watching it grow over time. Now, gold and other precious metals do grow over time, but where they really serve their purpose is that they act as insurance or a hedge against, well, I think that this picture pretty much describes it perfectly, is that against crazy economic policies and governments and central banks doing crazy things. And so ever since the US and pretty much every other country unpegged their currency from the gold standard, which was a check and balance to prevent governments doing crazy things like, as you can see here happening today, which is printing too much money, driving inflation way up, borrowing way too much debt, not being able to, borrowing way too much money and getting into too much debt and not being able to actually pay off their debt. And as a result, all they can do is print more money. That dilutes the value of any money currently circulating in the economy, and that affects people like you. So people who've worked very hard to save their money, just to demonstrate what the consequences of inflation and loose monetary policies. I'll refer back to way back after the First World War, when Germany experienced hyperinflation. And so what happened was they funded their entire military campaigns with debt. So they unpegged their currencies from the gold standard, funded the whole lot with debt, were unable to make their repayments both internally and externally. And so as a result, they had to print marks on top of marks, to the point where basically it was a lot cheaper to burn your money to keep warm in the wintertime than actually using that money to buy wood, to then burn that wood to keep warm, which is absolutely ridiculous if you ask me, because wood comes from trees and money comes from wood pulp. But as you can see, when governments do ridiculous things happen. And even if we took all of the gold in existence today and sold it all, and I'll be generous and round it up to 190,000 tons, multiplied by 40 million US dollars per ton, you'll see that even if we sold all the gold in existence in circulation, you would still only be able to pay off about a third of the US's debt. So that should illustrate the seriousness of the situation. Now, the other reason to buy gold and silver is involuntary bail-ins. So obviously, if you buy gold and silver, I don't store mine with the bank. You can do what you want with it, but I would recommend you read this article about governments no longer wanting to bail out banks that get a little bit too loose and get into problems. So in summation, what this is saying is that if your bank goes and does crazy things and does very irresponsible lending, and they get into trouble, the government will no longer bail them out, and they put the onus on the people like yourselves who deposit money with the bank to bail them out. And as you can see here, against your, voluntary participation, they can take a portion, which is unspecified, and again, another red flag, to effectively try and bail the bank out. And now, there's no guarantee that that would actually work. So in the event that it does not work,
You're gonna have a bad time.
Okay, moving on. So now you know why it's important to buy gold and silver. I wanted to take you guys through why I would only ever consider buying physical gold or silver. And the reason to only ever consider buying physical gold and silver is very, very simple. Because you never actually know if the gold and silver is really there.
It's all a fugazi. You know what a fugazi is?
Oh, Fugazi, it's fake.
Yeah, fugazi. It's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's a fairy dust. It doesn't exist. It's never landed. It is no matter. It's not on the elemental chart. It's not fucking real.
A really good article that I found the other day is the Doug Casey's The International Man and the Dangers of Paper Gold. And I would actually encourage you guys to all have a read of the article. And as you guys can see, I think that this paragraph sums it up perfectly. The reason why you should never buy paper gold is because I would argue that most, if not all, the ETFs that do, these gold ETFs, they don't actually hold the gold. So what they've done is they've issued a promise to purchase the gold if it becomes necessary. But when it becomes necessary to purchase the gold, the purpose of buying the gold has already been defeated. Not only do the ETFs not hold, all the gold that they say they do, if any, world banks and other big institutions, more often than not, only hold a very, very small portion of the actual gold that they sell to their clients. Now, this is called a fractional reserve system. So again, I would encourage you guys to do a bit more research on what that means. But in effect, if things turn to shit and everybody wants gold, the big banks get served first, then the bigger institutions, then the bigger dealers, then everybody else, and then you are the very, very last in the queue. And just food for thought, a little interesting article here. I would actually recommend you guys, if you have time, to have a look at this video where it talks about the Reserve Bank of Australia essentially losing 11 tons of gold. I don't know how you lose 11 tons of gold, but again, that just reinforces the importance to only buy physical gold and silver that you can hold. And what I wanted to do is I actually wanted to take you guys through and help you understand some of the jargon in terms of the purity, the grades, the carats, what all this means. And what we want is we only ever want to buy investment grade gold, right? So what we're talking about is gold that is 99% purity or higher, or 24 out of 24 parts gold, or 24 carats. Anything less than that, and you shouldn't be interested. Okay, so moving on. Worst to best forms of physical gold and silver. These two are the worst forms of gold and silver. Why? Risk and value for money. A bit of history about junk coins. So coins were printed using silver up until about 60 years ago. It got too expensive to print, and so the government had to then decommission it and replace it with other metals. Now, as a result, these coins actually became more and more valuable over time because they're 90% silver. The problem with this is that most reputable places that deal gold and silver will not be dealing junk coins. So you don't actually know whether you have real silver or fake silver. And it's very, very hard to verify unless you're some kind of chemist and know some kind of chemistry. I would recommend staying away from junk coins. And jewelry, I would equally recommend staying away from these. And the reason is simple, because when you buy jewelry, more often than not, you're typically getting 10 to 16 carats. And if you think back to the page before, that's not very good, because what you're effectively getting is only about 40 to 60% gold. And the rest, what you're paying for are margins, retail margins, craftsmanship and whatnot. Now, on the occasion that even if you do get 24 karat gold jewelry, again, what you're paying for is all of this crap. So this detail here, and people, taking time to make all these extra details to make it look all pretty, you're paying for that. You're paying for the logistics, you're paying for the rent of the retail store, or however else, okay? Bad value for money. All right, moving on. So the best forms of physical gold and silver, my preference is the bullion. And very simple, the reason for that is that at a point when you can buy a gold bullion, the margins that people make when they sell you this bullion gets lower and lower and lower and lower. What you'll notice is that this is the price of gold. And if we actually go to bullion coins, what you'll notice is that, as you can see here, $2,100 and the gold spot price is $1,845, right? So what this means is that you have a margin of just a little bit over 14%. So when you buy a gold coin, you're effectively saying bye-bye to 14% of your money. Not very good for building long-term wealth or preserving it for that matter. But where it starts getting a little bit better is if you look at bullions, right? So as you can see here, the margin on that, that's about 2% margin. And as you buy more and more and more, and that increases, so for example, the 5-ounce bullion, 1887, take away 1845.36, 42 divided by the gold spot price, times 100, right? Not too bad, about 2%, 2%. And over the long term, you know, that's not a bad premium to pay, considering you don't have to pay monthly fees. Unlike insurance, you just buy it, you pay the margin once, and then you pay it again when you sell it. Okay, so that's why I like physical gold and silver. And to conclude our video today, guys, we're going to be talking about how to find a reputable dealer. Now, I don't buy from the Perth Mint because their margins are way too high. But what I do like about the Perth Mint is that they are the official Australian government bullion minter. And so what you can actually do is you can find very reputable dealers on here. And as you can see before, this is the Australian Bullion Company. Now, I don't work for them. I'm not sponsored by them. I just like to get my gold from these guys. All right, so that concludes our video, guys. Drop a comment if you have any questions. Hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the video, and hit the little notification bell if you want to see more videos like these. Until next time, happy investing.